What was the biggest tough crap response in history? During the Battle of Arnhem in World War II, about 700 British airborne troops were surrounded and hopelessly outnumbered by almost 20k Germans. The German commander sent an envoy to discuss terms of surrender. The British officer who received him replied with, "I'm sorry, but we do not have the facilities to take you all prisoner currently." The Brits continued fighting and most were killed, with only a few survivors captured. Their last radio transmission before being overrun, out of ammunition. God save the king. This scene plays out in a bridge too far and is perfectly filmed. The Cherokee Nation suing for their right to sovereignty in the Supreme Court, winning their case, and then being shafted by Andrew Jackson, who basically refused to adhere to the court's ruling. They lost their land and the Trail of Tears followed shortly afterward. The Trail of Tears isn't going to cry itself, Andrew Jackson. It's not the biggest, but Rod Blagojevich, Illinois governor who attempted to sell Barack Obama's vacated Senate seat, just requested that his jail sentence be reduced because it has been very hard on his family. He has served 4 of 14 years. The judge said, "Tough crap. You've got 10 years left." I heard his wife on the radio boohooing about how that judge just doesn't understand the situation this has put their family in and that so much has changed for them in the last 4.5 years. Maybe her husband should have thought of that before trying to sell a Senate seat. I don't even know how he thought he was gonna pull that off. Heard her on NPR. Laughed my butt off. When I was around 7 or so, I decided to build a small ramp to jump my bike on the gravel driveway outside of our house. My father saw what I was doing. He said, "That's a bad idea. You are going to wipe out on the gravel and skin the heck out of your elbows and knees. Don't do it." I did not listen. Guess what happened when I used the ramp? I wiped out, hit the gravel, and skinned the heck out of my knees and elbows. I walked in the house crying, blood running down my legs and arms. He looked up from his newspaper to give me a glare. "That will feel better when it quits hurting." I stood there feeling stupid for a few seconds, then walked into the bathroom to clean myself up. Is it the biggest in all of history? Number. But it's the biggest in my history. That will feel better when it quits hurting. Most dad answer ever. Certainly not the biggest, but the funniest in my mind. Ferruccio Lamborghini owned a very successful tractor company that shared his name with his wealthy purchased many Ferraris. Ferruccio hated the interior and clumsiness of them but loved the exterior and bodywork. One thing he was hypercritical of the Ferraris was their clutch. They burned out very quickly and constantly needed alignment or replacing. Lamborghini brought this to Enzo Ferrari's attention only to have it completely dismissed. So Lamborghini decided to re-engineer the clutch himself. After a successful rebuild, he basically said, "Frick it, I'm starting a company to compete against Enzo directly." Thus was born Automobili Lamborghini. The Perry Expedition. Essentially, the United States sent gunboats and 1,600 infantrymen to Japan and threatened to level the port of Edo if Japan didn't open themselves up to trade with the outside world. The end result was the signing of the Convention of Kanagawa and an end to Japan's 220-year policy of national seclusion. Open the country. Stop having it be closed. Maybe a stretch, but Julius Caesar was on board a ship captured by pirates when he was 15, but befriended them and even ended up captaining the rest of that voyage. Later in his life, when he had his own ships, hunted them specifically and had them executed. Even better, he told them a joke that, after he was freed, he'd have them all crucified. A joke. Only it wasn't. To be fair, though, he had their throats cut before he nailed them, you know, to be nice. I have no way of validating this as real or not, but I saw this. Conversation overheard on VHF guard 121.5 MHz. Argentine Air Defense Site. Unknown aircraft. You are in Argentine airspace. Identify yourself. Aircraft. This is a British aircraft. I am in Falklands airspace. Argentine Air Defense Site. You are in Argentine airspace. If you do not depart our airspace, we will launch interceptor aircraft. Aircraft. This is a Royal Air Force Tornado fighter. Send them up. I'll wait. Argentine Air Defense Site. Total silence. To the consternation of our friends on here from down under, that Britain decided to send its criminals and undesirables to Australia as punishment. Oh, you stole a book? Well, tough crap. We're sailing you 10,500 miles away to live in a land where everything seems out to get you. Joke's on them though. Land of sunshine and beaches. Apparently the average white Australian in the 1800s was in far better health and grew taller than their British counterpart. From memory we all leveled out post World War II. For example, Australian troops in the Boer War needed to be 5 ft 7 while Britain was 5 feet 3. This was, I think, during the US nullification crisis in the 1830s. South Carolina threatened to secede due to the Tariff of 1828/1832. They, fronted by John C. Calhoun, pretty much complain to Andrew Jackson. Jackson pulls a capital FU and goes, "If Calhoun threatens to secede his state from the Union, I will secede his head from the rest of his body." I think the quote was unverified, but it honestly sounds like something Jackson would do. Jackson was a bad mother. The United States' response to the French asking for help in their revolution. They sent ship after ship full of men to help us fight the English. When they asked us to return the favor, we basically told them we couldn't get involved in another country's affairs. Not only that, we said that the crap ton of money we owed the French wasn't owed anymore when the Republic formed, leading to the Quasi-War. Probably when the mayor of Atlanta wrote Sherman, saying something to the effect of, "We only have women, elderly and children here, please spare the city." Sherman was like, "No fam, I'll be there in 3 days." Despite the fact that post-war Confederate sympathizers blame Sherman alone for the destruction of Atlanta, much of the damage to the city came from General Hood burning military facilities and ammunition dumps as the Confederate retreated from the city. To the German commander, "Nuts," the American commander, the reply by the besieged Americans to the Germans who were asking them to surrender during the Battle of the Bulge. The Highway of Death attack in Iraq by coalition forces. Other European nations accuse the US of participating in a turkey shoot against a retreating enemy. US said they would have fought another day. Attacking retreating forces isn't prohibited, only surrendering lawful combatants. First Opium War 1839 to 1842. The United Kingdom supplied China with opium. China became alarmed over the amount of opium addicts. They were also unhappy about the amount of money flowing out of its country and into the UK, so they, rightly, banned opium. They seized 20,000 chests of opium and blocked foreign trade. Rather than respecting China's wishes, the UK simply used their navy and gunnery power to inflict a quick and decisive defeat, a tactic later referred to as gunboat diplomacy. China then had to pay large compensation, create a free movement zone so the UK could come and go as they pleased, and they had to give the UK Hong Kong Island. TLDR. Trying to protect your country from drug addiction, tough crap. That's why we have armies, to enforce our will. I was always fond of Frontenac's response to Phipps' order to surrender in the 1690 Battle of Quebec. I have no reply to make to your general other than from the mouths of my cannons. V Victus. Rome was buying off some barbarians, and when they thought the scales that were being used to weigh the tribute were imbalanced, causing their tribute to be overpaid, the conquering commander threw his sword on the scales and said this: "It means, woe to the vanquished, and it is in the feminine form for extra salt on the wound." President Reagan's response to the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Organization when they illegally went on strike in 1981. TLDR. He ordered them all to return to work in 48 hours. About 10% did. He fired the rest as promised. I don't know what he was specifically responding to, but whatever it was that made Thucydides say, "Right, as the world goes, is only in question between equals in power, while the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must." It's literally the longer, more verbose form of tough crap. Shortly after the Civil War, a man named William McArdle was imprisoned for publishing incendiary articles that advocated opposition to the Reconstruction laws passed by the Republicans in Congress. He was jailed by a military commander under the Military Reconstruction Act of 1867. McArdle invoked habeas corpus in the circuit court but was denied when a federal judge found the military's actions legal. He then petitioned the Supreme Court and was successfully granted cert. Unfortunately, during the period of time after the case was argued but before the court could deliver their opinion, Congress revoked the Supreme Court's jurisdiction over any cases involving Reconstruction laws, effectively preventing the court from ruling on McArdle's case. When the court delivered their opinion, all they could say was, "Well, Congress told us we are no longer allowed to rule on this issue or any similar issue regarding this law. Yes, they are allowed to do this. Sorry, man. The case is called Ex parte McArdle for anyone wanting to read up on it. TL. DRA man was jailed by the military during Reconstruction for publishing anti-Reconstruction writings. Man tries to challenge the constitutionality of his imprisonment. Supreme Court agrees to hear his case. After arguments but before the court could deliver their opinion, Congress stripped the Supreme Court of their rights to preside over the case or any other case regarding the laws in question. Constantine's response to Mehmed at the Battle of Constantinople. Mehmed knew he would have to pay a pretty heavy price if he wanted to win against Constantine, so he made an offer to allow Constantine to surrender and become his puppet. Basically, Constantine's answer was this: to surrender the city to you is beyond my authority or anyone else's who lives in it. For all of us, after taking the mutual decision, shall die out of free will without sparing our lives. Or more simply, frick you, come get us. Constantine 11 was hardcore. I'd say any one of many times when some village told Genghis Khan that they didn't know he was ruler of the world and that they already should have paid homage to him before knowing he existed. John Rabe. He was a Nazi diplomat who saved 250,000 civilians during the Nanking massacre by telling the Japanese troops they were under the protection of the Reich. I mean, he only managed a delay but it let them escape. General Sherman. As he was making his march through Georgia during the Civil War, the mayor of Atlanta sent the general a letter requesting Atlanta be spared from a Union attack. Sherman's response: you might as well appeal against the thunderstorm. An attack on Atlanta was inevitable, so Sherman pretty told the mayor tough titties. My favorite is in response to being called disgustingly drunk. Winston Churchill said, "My dear, you are ugly, and what's more, you are disgustingly ugly, but tomorrow I shall be sober and you will still be disgustingly ugly." In all fairness, so was he. The creation of the Panama Canal. The US offered to build it with Colombia, who owned Panama at the time, but they decided against it for a number of reasons. So the United States basically made a whole new country and built the canal anyway. Ray Kroc took the McDonald's brothers' ideas, franchised it, then forced the brothers to stop using their own branded trademark. Right after the American Revolution, the French Revolution occurred and revolutionary France went to war with like every major European country. France asked America for some help in return for how they bailed us out during the American Revolutionary War, but America was like, nah, I'm not messing with that deep crap you're in, and didn't send aid to France. To be fair, America was still an extremely young country that had yet to get its own crap in order. It would have been a very bad idea for them to get involved in a foreign war when they had no real governmental infrastructure in place. During the Albigensian Crusade, the town of Béziers was encircled and under siege. When it came time to sack the city, the papal envoy who was in charge was asked what to do about the fact that there were Catholics amongst the Catholic heretics. The response of the papal envoy was, "Tous les tous, de reconnaître les signes." It translates as, "Kill them all, God will recognize his own." Hardcore. General James N. Mattis, USMC. Upon meeting with the defeated military leaders of Iraq in 2003, "I come in peace. I didn't bring artillery, but I'm pleading with you, with tears in my eyes. If you frick with me, I'll kill you all." In 1452, a Hungarian cannon builder named Orban approached the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople to offer his services. Orban was a Christian and wanted to help the Christian Byzantines defend themselves against an imminent siege by the Ottoman Turks. But Orban wasn't giving away his services. His new gigantic cannon design would be a world beater and he expected to get paid. Emperor Constantine 11 told Orban the Byzantines couldn't afford his fancy gun. Too much money. "Thanks, but no thanks." Orban insisted. He cut his price. He explained that the new cannon may be the only thing stopping the Ottomans from wiping the Byzantine Empire off the map. Constantine held firm. No, sorry, too much money, not interested. But please don't sell it to the Ottomans. Such a cannon might devastate our city walls. So, no contracts for you, and please abide by our unenforceable non-compete clause. By Orban left Constantinople and made his way directly to the Ottoman camp of Mehmet II. Mehmet saw the plans and immediately paid Orban his asking price. The cannon was built in 3 months and was used to devastating effect on the walls of Constantinople in 1453. The city walls were breached and the capital overrun. Constantine XI was killed during the raid. Unfortunately, our plucky pal Orban was also killed when one of his mega cannons exploded in situ. But still, it was a tough crap moment that changed the balance of Christian-Muslim power forever. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.